spoke to him about what he wants to do. You were there. Well, I don't know there.
No, I wasn't.
Because
I'm like,
George is there.
so they were sitting on that street. So the other two other people who
One
wanted
man
to
came in also.
Right.
And
That's a problem.
he was kind of like tired, and used to say, and I'm like, good. So, but I spoke to,
Hey, how you doing? You got one more year.
I thank them.
You got one more year.
Yeah, what's going on?
Making sure that
Hi, how are you?
No, because they, I think I already, George,
Nice off on this year? Good.
Yeah, now that you mention
but I
it.
said,
Early to go. You gotta go back.
How's it for you?
So he knew him too?
Whatever. So obviously, George said, get back to him.
Think your father's spoken to him?
I don't know.
Ellen, you know, your friend's supposed to be friends. Are you the lead? I
I'm so honored. Hey, they keep us in the office last time. All right.
to get home today. So let's jump right in. First of all, thank you all for coming out, and also just as a reminder that we're also live streaming. So the question will be out in the world as well. Let's be mindful of that. So I want to begin with a thought of Torah that I think will connect right into our evening. So there is a series of shuvot over medieval times, and they ask an interesting question. And the question they ask, and this is a intellectual, legal discussion, not a moral question that we're going to talk about today. The question they ask is it okay for a Jew, or a God-fearing Jew, to be a hunter? And this question is asked a few times throughout medieval literature. And like all good Jewish questions, some say yes, some say no. And there are pretty much two schools of thought that the Rishonim weigh on. One is circling around the legal concept called tsar b'chayim, that you can't cause undue pain to animals, which may mean a categorical no, or it may mean okay if you don't. And the other legal variable is about tashlit, not wasting. And so if you're going to hunt, the question is maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, depends on if you're going to waste. And in the 14th century, a Shuma Hadeshem writes a very long Shuma. And he goes back and forth and tries to wrestle with this concept. And in the end, of going back and forth and weighing the pros and cons, he says, the answer is no. And he pulls out two concepts. One, count his card. He says the answer is no, because the Torah says, "V'asita hashar v'atov," you need to do what's right and just. And if that wasn't enough for you, he's got his back pocket, and he says no, because we just read a couple times over the last week, there's a concept called kedoshim to you, and we should be holy. And therefore, even though there are things that we're allowed to do in halacha, doesn't mean we're supposed to do them. And we have to find a way to go beyond the letter of the law. And one of the concepts that arises for me that ties into this is we have text, we have halacha, we have a lot of things that tell us what to do. But the challenge is that when we're in it, we have to make sure that we're in it and following it, but also not to lose sight of the big picture. And the big picture is we're engaging in a process so that we model and our children begin to see what it means to be holy, what it means to be unique, what it means to go on a path to be the kind of people that we know that they can be. And so you have to be able to balance both the trees from the forest. And that is the backdrop for what I want to share with you a little bit about, and some of you saw the notes. We had a two-track system, which I think made a little bit of a bifurcation of that choice. A track that allowed you to engage in text, and a lot in text, and a track that allowed you one to engage in the other, the why questions, the philosophy questions, the meta questions. And I believe that distinction was probably a distinction that wasn't best for our school. Now, it is true that with a little bit of magic, the show could slip one of those in here, put another here, but it wasn't ever built in a way that you could have your cake and eat it too. So one of the things that we've been working on the last couple of months is to integrate both of those into one Judaic studies track, which means that what I like to call the meat and potatoes are there, and that students will be able to come out with strong text skills, Gemara, Chumash, etc. At the same time, students also have, in some cases, an option, and in some cases required, to take those other courses, meaning students, Jewish history, got to come out and know Jewish history. Jewish thoughts could be another one. An ethics course, rabbinic literature. The opportunity to have a bikiyut, an additional Gemara, if you want, and many other options that students can choose from. So So we built a schedule that allows students to have both those options. We're not going to go into tremendous detail here, but when they're in the 9th and 10th grades, they have less options, and as they move into the later grades, they have more choices after they cover what I call their needs. We also had a unique situation where the level that you needed may be available, may not. Again, it shows you try to work their magic, but not always can it work. We built blocks of time throughout the schedule. So there are going to be levels within Judaic studies. And whatever level a child needs, they are going to get. Sorry for moving, that's not. I can't help it. Okay, I mean, so the ability to have the level you need is going to be available, and it's not going to put any student in a situation, well, I really need the advanced this, but I can't take the advanced tomorrow because it conflicts with whatever it is. There are blocks of time that every student will have what they need, and over the next week, we're working with students to show them their schedule, and they're going to know what they're going to take over the course of the next 4 years. Big goal, they'll have to do some choices they can take along with, but they're going to see exactly what they're going to take. Every class will be built. So, step one was to analyze what we needed. We analyzed it. Step two was to redo the entire upper school schedule to make sure that all the Kodesh classes that students need would be available to them. Then we had to look in, well, what are our weaknesses? What are we missing? And some of the weaknesses where we did not have a sufficient, in my opinion, female role model, female presence. So we needed to make sure that we could add that. Also to make sure that we had the right teachers to teach the right subjects. So, and with that, and I know some of you saw the email and some of you may not know. So firstly, I want to formally welcome to our upper school Judaic studies staff, with Gila Litzman, who's in the back row. You have to wait a little bit. I will soon get a bio and send it to you. What I can tell you is that I only hire the best. Gila is the best. She'll be teaching Nach and Tanakh and working with our young women alongside Elevate, who some of you are in the school already know, and we're very excited. In addition to that, we tend to have a situation where our girls may not be able to get, our young women may not be able to get Gemara necessarily from a woman as well, and we're going to be able to offer, starting next year, our first high-level Gemara Shir for women, taught by women, and I know she's here because there she is. I also want to recognize and welcome name? Yes. Dr. Ansfeld, who again also will have a more formal bio or a reputation around the community for those of you who are in that world. Is remarkable, works with adults, and she's teaching high-level Gemara for women as well. That will be only for 11 So, those are some of the pieces of our new staff that I wanted to tell you. There are the names, and I'll give you some more bios. Okay, so thank you to those of you who wrote me questions, and I'll just highlight a little bit of this. We're going to do this a little bit frontal and give you some information, and we'll take some opportunities for questions asked. So, some of the questions that you need to know. Yes, there is still an Israel trip, and yes, it is still happening, and it's still happening the year after next. I cannot give you tremendous detail because I haven't got there yet, but I will. That's part of summer work, and we're still on target to have a first Israel trip. I had extensive experience running Israel trips for Cuban, have extensive experience. We will be able to show it to you right with you, and probably hear about this next year as we can start to.
For what grade?
This is the current 9th grade blender in 11th. Thank you for the clarification. Are we having clubs, programs next year? Absolutely. In fact, I anticipate most of these students will have to sign up, and we're going to offer more options. We have a very talented staff who can do a lot of things. Some of you asked about move painting, model Congress, not acute, So we have a whole bunch of things that we're already running, which we're going to run again. Plus, so Ricky and I have had discussions about some new things that we're going to run. I cannot tell you exactly what they're going to be because the students are going to have to choose them. So we'll do a little smorgasbord of choices, and we'll look at how many students sign up for them, and we'll choose. But we have a staff that is, I think, more diverse than ever. We'll be able to offer as many extracurriculars and clubs as we have in the past, and I anticipate probably strategic learning. So the way I think about strategic learning is, yes, we have strategic learning. Yes, we're committed to it. We just enhance it. And I want to also acknowledge a new hire, Naomi Whiters. And I'll tell you a little bit. I spend a lot of time, looking and searching, and then Mr. Wilson will share a little more, trying to find somebody who really understood the deep needs of students, the difference between different tiers and levels. And Ms. Whiters comes from a world where she's totally immersed in it. You're not going to find smarter or better. And she has done this with the school, I don't know how many times larger than us, so we'll be okay. We'll share more details with you in just a moment. She'll be working together with Ms. Lisa Marks, who is not here, we're working together. So it's more hands-on deck, perhaps here today. Yeah, I'll tell you about things. We'll be okay there. Sports. We will continue to have sports. Again, I expect us to have even probably some more offerings. Penny
Eisenstein.
Thank you. It's a wire in between somewhere. We'll be running points with me together to do that. She actually was in the upper school on Thursday and put out some offerings, tennis, for the kids, and we'll see again what other sports the kids might want to be involved with. A schedule already in place. We are going to be using our upper school gym as our home base for practices and for games up until the academic year, sometime in August. And then over the summer, we'll work on a plan in terms of what practice and games look like. There's probably a shuttle going to be involved. We'll have more details for that, but every child will have every sport that they want, every practice that they want. We're hopefully going to, we're a Jewish school, so we're not looking for that W, we're going to be a little more competitive. So we're going to work on that. Sure. So those are the highlights. So what we're going to do from now is different people are going to present some of the updates that we have been working for the last 3 to 4 months. And reimagine really means looking under every single hood and seeing what's great, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be modified. So we've done a lot. There is some more things we're going to share with you over the course of the summer, but I think we're in a very good place. And I just want to close before I turn over to the next slide. Yeah, okay. Is you all know that change can be hard, and sometimes the fear of the unknown is scary. And people put a narrative in place. Your mind that doesn't have information, it needs a story to make it logical. The powers that be before me envisioned a school that was a modern Orthodox K-12 school. A school that we would hang our hats on, proud of, give our children everything they need to compete in both the college and the human world and the adult world. And we are going to get there. And what I can say is, I know some, perhaps other folks in the room, there's a little bit of fear, and not all the answers are out there. I don't love to talk this way, but I will. I've done this a number of times. And I've taken schools that were not even in the state that this school is in. I've been able to modify and change the program. I am very confident, and I know you don't know me that well yet, but I'm very confident that we are going to put together a program in the high school and the middle school and the lower school that is going to be something that folks are going to reckon with, and folks are going to look back and say, look how far we've come. It takes time. And I know that this has been a long process. I hear they were talking about the merger perhaps before I was born now. And we're at, if you imagine a track rounding the bend. And I believe, and I know that you will see 30, 60 days into next year, a different kind of school that is the school that will begin to give a glimmer of that thing we've been hoping for. There's tremendous, tremendous beauty already in the school, and we just need to harness it a little bit. We have great teachers already inside the school. We have great kids already inside the school. On Friday, I was talking to a candidate, and I had to stop because the kids were dancing inside and outside. It was a wonderful thing, and we just need to give a little bit of direction and a little bit of informed decision making, and we'll be in a very good place. I emailed you probably as a group 48 times or so, and many different ways. And I do try at the bottom to say, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Some of you have, some of you haven't. And I just can't miss this opportunity to say, if you're scared of coming to the school office, if you are somebody who, I don't want to deal with it, ask somebody in the room if they've come to my office and their experience was. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to be helpful. I believe 9 out of 10 times I can come to a place where you understand where I'm coming from. That is not so easily communicated in an email, so I want to continue that dialogue with you. I could talk forever, but I won't. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roja, who is our agenda specialist.
Hey, I wanted to give you guys some kudos for just coming out tonight. It's a Sunday night. I'm sure it's not the easiest thing to come to school. You're not supposed to be in school. And so thank you for spending some time with us today. I'm going to talk to you guys briefly about some improvements we have to our general studies program coming up. There'll be even more exciting details that we'll share in the coming weeks, but we wanted to give you a glimpse of what to expect. So hey, we'll dive on in. Hey, next year we are expanding our STEM program significantly. We are not quite done hiring a physics teacher, but we're well underway heading in that direction. We will be adding a physics class that all 9th graders will take moving forward, and we're going to add an engineering elective that all 9th and 10th graders will take moving forward. And so we're going to take our physics program, which is in its current state just one class, and it's only a class that some juniors and seniors take, and everybody will take physics in 9th grade. And something that people have been asking for, especially the last few years, is an AP physics track. We'll be able to roll that out next year as well. We are hoping also to have not just that intro-level engineering elective, but also other opportunities for students to build and to design and to get their hands dirty. Actually trying things out, experimenting, envisioning things and building things, and really tinkering with things. I feel like that's something that we can grow and expand into, and we're well underway heading in that direction. In order to make that happen, we'll have some new STEM teachers, and we're looking forward to sharing those details with you as soon as we've got some signed contracts. But know that we are well underway in the hiring process, and we hope to announce some great news and specifics soon. The other thing I wanted to comment on is in humanities. We're looking at revamping, especially our 10th grade English track. We are adding a class called World Literature that will be taught in 10th grade by Mr. Wilson, who you'll hear from in just a little bit. And we are also revamped how we are going to offer AP language in the future. We are actually going to move that to the 10th grade track, so that students in 10th grade have the opportunity not just to take AP World History, which they currently have the opportunity to do, but also to take AP Life. And so students who want the high soar fly and hold those to high standards, we're going to be able to increase the rigor in 10th grade starting next year. Other thing that we're looking to ramp up is our fine arts offerings. We are going to have a upper school fine arts teacher, and we are looking to have all 9th and 10th graders take art as an elective. The way that'll work is half the year you'll be in art, the other half of the year you'll be in engineering, and so you'll get introduced to both of those fields in 9th grade, and then you'll be able to take a step further in 10th. So when we talk about becoming a STEAM school, STEM plus art, we're very sincere about it. That all students will have taken physics, chemistry, biology by the time that they graduate. That all students will have been exposed to engineering and art also in 9th and 10th grade moving forward. So that's really going to enhance our general studies course offerings significantly. As a result of having an art teacher, we're going to be able to have a more robust AP Studio Art program. I've been running our AP Studio Art program, but I'm not personally an art, like a professional artist or trained in the field as though this works. But I'm looking forward to handing it off to someone who's going to be able to take us to new heights in the future. In particular, we're hoping to roll out more 3D art opportunities, so things like ceramic sculpture, so on and so forth. We don't have a lot of that now, but that'll be hopefully in place soon. And as far as electives go, we are looking at ways to upgrade traditional electives that we've offered throughout the years. So things like newspaper and yearbook, we're still planning on having them. They're just going to be better, moving forward. And then we're also excited about adding additional electives soon. Some of those we'll have to wait on finalizing some hires because there's some exciting possibilities that are in the works. But again, we just need to make sure that we finish that hiring cycle and then we'll be able to roll out those new possibilities in the very near future. Short version of this is everything that we've had, we're holding on to. We're going to hold on to all the strengths that we've traditionally had in general studies. We're just going to build on that and expand out and have things that are better and more for you guys moving forward. This next slide, the font is a little smaller than I would like, so don't hurt your eyes. I'll explain everything that's on there. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is our scheduling, and we spent many hours talking about how can we take the benefits that we have in our current block schedule that we rolled out this year and hold on to it, and then also find ways to enhance it and to get even more out of our schedule for next year. And so so I want to tell you a couple of features so that you would hear it now before we roll out more details in the future. But we're going to have what's called a hybrid block schedule, and the way that's going to work is we're going to have some classes that are shorter classes that will run 5 days a week. And we're going to have other classes that are block classes that are running in larger increments, and those are going to run every other day on an alternating schedule. The benefit of that is it allows us to take classes that would benefit the most from a longer block, say an AP Science class where you maybe want more time to do a lab or to do a more intense deep dive into something, and so we can match which classes would best benefit from the larger blocks to that longer chunk of time. There are other classes, like we've heard from Hebrew teachers who've often said, it might work better if we're learning Hebrew regularly 5 days a week, but in smaller increments. And so we're able to take those classes that would benefit most from it and kind of match those.
I would also add, things like math as well. The data show that things like math and language are things that they need to have every day, and smaller doses may be better, as opposed to things also like Talmud, for example, where we want to really dig in deep in text build. 45 minutes may not be adequate. So we're looking at what the discipline is and how much time it needs, and putting it into a schedule so that the contour of the schedule meets the needs of the learner.
We'll put.
Hey,
great, excellent. So most students are going to have a schedule where there's going to be a mixture of shorter classes that meet 5 days a week and some longer classes that are meeting on alternate days. And we really think that will allow us to hold on to the benefits that we've enjoyed from our block schedule this year and actually even go further with it, and really enhance it in many ways. The other thing that this allows us to do is we have matched our morning schedule with the middle school schedule. And what that means is it's possible for us to align the periods. The upside of that is we get to share resources. So if we had, say, a great hire who could teach both middle school and high school, then we could take advantage of that because the schedules play. They line up. Right now, our schedules just don't align at all. And so that was one of the biggest challenges that we faced in trying to design the new schedule, but we're excited about that, not just for next year, but moving forward. It allows us to have flexibility in terms of how we use our resources and who's teaching what and which grade level.
And I don't want to be that guy, but I will for a second.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we are able to offer, so how does that come to be? So how do we all of a sudden bring in arts, AP art, studio art, graphic art to the high school? Well, it's very hard to find someone to come in for a period or maybe 2 periods. It doesn't work. So once the whole thing is linked up, and now I have a middle school, upper school combo. And now I can go find a bang-up art teacher full-time and have her do something together. So true for many of our subjects, it also links up. And I also wanted to take a moment because the total reimagine of our upper school schedule also meant that we had to reimagine our middle school schedule. And I also wanted to give a special shout out to Fernine and to Debbie, who allow us to totally start all over again and go back and forth and back and forth to try to make sure we can make this work, as well as middle school, and there's a couple of you here, we'll also have opportunities to take a high school course if need be in a Gemara or a Chumash or a math. So we're really, really synced up, and we're using our resources much better now. So middle school teachers, some of our middle school teachers are former high school teachers. We go up, then we go down. So the whole thing is much more streamlined. But a special thanks to Debbie and to Fanine for allowing me to imagine blank.
And then the only other two things I wanted to mention about our new schedule, we've got a new period that we're adding to the schedule called Academy Time. It will be after lunch on every other day. And during Academy Time, we'll be able to run our community time programming, which has been a big success. It's traditionally been on Fridays, so we'll just kind of move it on to a different day of the week. It'll be fine. But then on the other days where we have Academy Time, it's a time that is really flexible. We can use it in a lot of different ways. And so let me tell you a couple of the ideas that we've explored with it. One thing we've heard about clubs and how we've had not as many clubs as we would like to offer in the past. Part of the challenge with it has been, well, when do the clubs meet? When do students have time to get together as groups and pursue shared interests? Well, Academy Time is going to be a big part of the solution there. It's going to be time built into the schedule where clubs can meet. And we're anticipating having many more clubs moving forward than what we currently have. And time had been a limitation, and it won't be anymore. It's built into the schedule. It's also a time for grade levels to meet as a group, or for student leadership teams to meet. That can also be flexible time if you really need help with the studying for a math test that's coming up. You know that the math teacher is in the building when you've got Academy Time, and you can meet with them. Similarly, you could meet with your college guidance counselor, or you could meet if you're having a hard day with like Dr. Mason, our emotional guidance counselor. And it'll be just time that's built into the schedule that allows different student groups to meet for different activities that happen that right now we're a little short on time for. And I think is going to be a huge improvement. I think it's going to allow us to do a lot in terms of student life that we right now struggle to do, because there's only so much you can get out of the lunch period, and I'm also a big believer that part of lunch should just be lunch. You should have time to sit down and just eat lunch and hang out with your friends. And so I'm really excited about Academy Time. There's several more details we need to hammer out before we have the exact cycle of different offerings and things. But it's going to be a great improvement to our student life experience.
I'm back again. Yeah. So let's keep concretizing for you just a little bit. So imagine our school newspaper. So kids are very busy during the day. They want to take a sport. The advisor's trying to get some number of kids during lunch and trying to navigate a little bit, or after school or left the time. And if you really want an award-winning or a high-caliber newspaper, or even a yearbook, there has to be a place and time where we're going to meet. There's an advisor who is there focused on that, with standards and expectations, and it's a legitimate time and not an add-on. So all of our clubs and like newspapers will have a place to go and have a place to actually be accountable, so that we can take this newspaper and increase the quality, have an online presence. And I've had a lot of history of newspapers. It can be a wonderful tool for students and for parents to more accustomed to what's going on in school.
Great, thanks. And then last but not least, by looking for ways that we can find efficiencies in the schedule, we've been able to add all of these awesome new features and get out of school earlier starting next year.
Yay.
So dismissal will move up from 4:30 to 4:07. I know the 07 is kind of funny there. We're trying to get it. We're quite able to get there. But we're excited about being able to offer all of these new things and get you guys out of school a little bit earlier. I think that'll be helpful for the whole community. Hey, that's my general studies update and scheduling update. We'll be hanging out afterwards to answer any questions that you guys might have.
So just to give you another second, when you look at 407, students will think earlier is better, but this actually has a philosophy and rationale behind it, because we have a robust sports program, and will continue. And as I watched the year, too much of the academics got hit the last period, because most schools get out earlier, and we're not always around the corner. So by bringing this up a little bit earlier, and already have Penny working the schedule, trying to negotiate with the schools to get our games later. The goal is really not to impact, it will impact, but try to minimize the impact of our instruction time, so our dismissal will be just a little bit earlier. So many of you may or may not know Mr. John Wilson. His work traditionally in the school has been the K-12 curriculum coordinator. A lot of this work that we've done is because John was willing to partner with me, and over the last few months, shift a lot of his time and energy to work with me in the upper school as we try to go through all the different possibilities, courses, sequences, etc. So a lot of this work that we did that is just coming to fruition now is because of John, and I would like to thank you for partnering with me over the course of the last few months. And also, I would look at strategic learning, and I wanted to give John an opportunity to share how he handles it.
So again, similar to everyone else, thank you guys for coming out tonight to hear about all of the exciting things that are happening at our school. I'm excited to share this information about strategic learning. Moving forward, both Lisa Marks and Naomi Whiters will be your points of contact to hear more about the program. I want to just echo something that Rabbi Lubitz said earlier before we dive in and learn more about the model, and that's Naomi. First of all, we did a national search to make sure that we have the brightest and most talented person. And there was a search committee, and we met and we interviewed some very talented individuals to bring to the school. But there was something very special and very unique about Naomi. She brings over 18 years of expertise in supporting students, supporting parents, and supporting teachers. So she's a battle-tested professional. But I think one of the most beautiful things about Naomi as a person is her personal journey and her contributions to the work. So she is the mother of a child who has unique learning differences or challenges, and she really wants to be an advocate for him, and she works in a high school where he's a student. So she just wants an opportunity to be a parent and an advocate. So I can assure everyone that when she's working with students and for students, that she's looking at it with both a professional lens and with the lens of a parent. And I know that we're going to be able to do so much more with strategic learning in terms of how we can utilize the program and the expertise of both Naomi and Lisa together to really strengthen the support that we're able to provide for all students at AJA, because they bring a lot of expertise to the table.
So of course, John, before you jump in,
Interrupt me as much as you like.
So before John jumps in, I also want to share with you that part of our thought process is we're actually going to start working with Naomi in the 8th grade. And this allows our students to get accustomed to her. She learns their learning profile. We're going to be starting some PSAT testing in the 8th grade. So we don't have this transition issue anymore. When a child, if younger children is helpful particularly, or if you're a middle school parent, the day you walk in, to day 1 in 9th grade, she knows your child, she knows the learning profile, she knows the game plan, and we're off and running. And we're not spending that time, for those of you who may be in this world or have a child with different needs, it can take 6 months till you figure it all out, or longer in some cases. So we are going to start this in 8th grade, and she'll be off and running with these children in day 1 of 9th grade. That's the big picture. Take away the small stuff.
Okay. So with the small stuff, which is also really big stuff. So I want everybody to envision strategic learning as not a separate thing that's going to get smaller over time. It's really the backbone of our school, because we want to be about the business of matching every student with the resources that he or she might need to be successful. So we're actually going to, again, rely on the expertise of what happens in strategic learning to make teaching and learning stronger for every student in the building. So here it says it's our job to make sure that every child who comes to us with learning challenges finishes strong. And that's what we're committed to. So under the new model, Naomi and Lisa will work together with teachers to make sure that we're giving every child in the building what they need to be successful. Also, Lisa and Naomi will work collaboratively with teachers to make sure that they are differentiating, to make sure that they are providing accommodations, to make sure that they really have resources in their toolkits to meet the needs of all learners. And then based on students' particular learning profiles, we will do extra work to make sure that those students are matched to the specific resources that match the actual scope of what they need. So Naomi and Lisa will be responsible for students who have diagnosed learning issues to determine, based on those issues, what type of support they will need, what the support will look like, and who will be responsible for providing that support. One of the things that will be different about the model, and it's not that it's not already happening, we're just going to make sure that there are more structured and strategic opportunities for it to happen. That's that our content area teachers who are already working with students every day will support Lisa and Naomi in the strategic learning lab to provide additional content support for students. So if you need extra help, if you need tutoring, our content area general studies teachers or our Judaic studies teachers will actually come in and be extra hands and extra bodies to give our students in strategic learning even more support. So I want you guys to think about the change in the model as an opportunity for more and not less, and more for all students and not just students who may have been traditionally associated with strategic learning. So I want you guys to think about the services that we'll provide moving forward in two different ways. We're referring to them as direct services and indirect services. So just to make sure that we're on the same page, indirect services are services that we can provide to any student who attends AJA upper school. We provide instructional strategies on a regular basis to make sure that every child has exactly what they need to be successful, but students who receive indirect services may not necessarily go into the strategic learning lab and work with either Naomi or Lisa. Direct services is when we'll work with students in small groups, either inside or outside of the classroom based on their needs and based on the nature of the intervention being performed. So our students who actually have diagnosed learning challenges will actually have the additional support of receiving the direct services. But again, indirect services, anyone can benefit from those services. Just to be on the same page moving forward, Naomi, whom you guys will have an opportunity to meet after this meeting, and then there'll be a separate meeting just for strategic learning. She's going to service you guys as the primary point of contact so that she can get to build relationships with parents and students to figure out the learning profile and to also make sure that we're able to provide the best service possible. Lisa and Naomi will work together with students to facilitate conversations with teachers to make sure that the students are always matched to the resources that they need to be matched to be successful. So they will spearhead the work of being advocates for students to make sure that there's a strong feedback loop and to make sure that parents are always informed and a part of the process. Lastly, Naomi and Lisa will work together with our Judaic Studies and General Studies faculty to provide ongoing professional development to make sure that our teachers are always equipped with the strategies and resources that they need to provide top-notch education for students in strategic learning. Most importantly, to utilize those same strategies to benefit all students in our building. So again, the model is definitely more and it's not less. And through best practices, through research, and through observation, we've seen firsthand that the strategies in strategic learning are just good teaching. And good teaching works for every student, and that's what we're committed to here at AJA, matching every child with the resources that he or she needs to be successful. So I think you guys will be very pleased with what we're going to offer. All right? Thank you.
One thing that we didn't get a chance to really unpack that will be later is in addition to the instruction, for those of you who have the unfortunate opportunity to read my weekly emails, you know I'm a big data guy and a big Y guy. And we're really looking hard at data, SATs, pre-SATs, and really looking at scope and sequences to make sure that all the standards are hit, so that all our students are going to be monitored very closely, irrespective if there's a learning issue or not. they can get to the place they need to go. So with that, I think I actually have to walk over to this. I want to give you a building update. And we can
classroom up here, chemistry, biology, our technology office, and we have one other exciting space. Come with me. This is called the Maker's Lounge. This room will be outfitted with high-tech and low-tech equipment. We are now in the biology lab. Exciting because it's so big. And in the floor you can see they've already installed the compressed air valve, gas valve, and water. This is a great view of the soccer field also, like right That's awesome. We're now in the chemistry lab, and in front of me is the teacher prep area for their lab, and then these are separate lab tables where the students will work, and in the back is just regular student desks. I'm now standing in the physics lab. This is an exciting space, because this is where the next Einstein is going to be. This is the student council office, and a dedicated closet for them as well. This is where you're going to find all the students. This is Mr. Scott's office. This is the social safety Starbucks in the building. We're in the teacher's break room. Look at this gorgeous building. These studios that we say, Netbash, Oya, Bagu, Body, healthy mind, and a healthy body equals students. I'm taking you through the entire building today. Now we need to complete our project. We need our competition gym, and I need your help. Please call me, call the front desk, send me an email, and make a pledge today, so we can be on our way to a beautiful competition high school gym. Now we're standing at the edge of the brand new competition soccer field. Look at this gorgeous green field.
So I've had the opportunity for the last year on our way here, looking for a place to live. And you know, if you go online and look for a place to live, the rooms look very, very big. I'm sure Hallie probably has a special camera. And then you walk into the room and they're like, not as big. So don't worry, some of those hallways look a little bit, the roof's a little bit narrow. It's an iPhone. So the second thing I wanted to tell you was, a lot of this is very, very intentional. And why do the teachers need two lounges necessarily? And because of and because I pulled most, not all, of the desks, teacher desks, out of the classroom. And they'll have, podiums, and they'll have places to do their work. But the idea is that space has to lend itself to our 21st century philosophy, which means collaboration. And if I'm not putting desks, formal desks in classroom, teachers need proper space to prep. And that could be a collaboration, noisy integration space, or it could mean I could buckle down here and grade a paper and not have noise. And I also need a place so I can have my lunch and eat, and the read should not meet. So again, when you look at these things, if they don't seem logical or you're not sure, they're all philosophically driven, they're all educationally driven, and if it's not transparent, just reach out to one of us and we'll explain our thinking and our rationale. Thank you. So also, we'll take this opportunity to say to Scott, who is always the person behind I forgot where, somewhere in the upper school, and the venue I can't remember anymore, but what happened, I was in a room, and Scott walked into the room, and about 6 or 7 boys, all come rushing. I was actually nervous he was going to get knocked over. So when hush hush off, the room where all the kids are going to hang out, yes, there's tech there at school, but it's also a place where Scott has been infection with our students from very young, and another little perk is being together in one space so we can continue to live. So thank you, guys. Yes, we have talked about parking. This is probably number 2 or 3 on the list for questions from you folks. So first, I want to those of you who may not know, so Jocelyn, who has been running Club Path for some period of time, is really working, our on-the-ground facilities person, and has done a tremendous amount of playing with me and reimagining. We have a lot of interesting things to share with you. If you walk our halls, take a look. We are cleaner, we are brighter, we are looking at every nook and cranny to really make sure that we stay on top of all our maintenance efforts. With no further ado, Ms. Dawson.
I know there's been a lot of questions about the logistics going on with everybody coming together, and there's been a lot of talk about not enough parking spaces. So what we have done in the last 2 months, we have gone out several times a week, different times of the day, different events going on in the school, and have literally counted parking spots. So we know for sure there are going to be enough parking spots, unless we have
and you went to the upper school and you counted spots there.
And we counted spots at the upper school as well, so we knew exactly how many spots we needed and how many spots we had. So unless we have a very big surprise and a giant influx of seniors next year, we are really set and ready to go with parking spots. But the way we're going to make sure everybody has a spot and that we're all comfortable is, as it is now, the circle in front of the school, probably where many of you park tonight, will remain visitor parking. The front lot where teachers enter, right in front of police now for the lower school, that's really the lower school area. We're going to keep that for teachers with the lower school parking. ECD, first, second, third grade, fourth grade. The section in front of the middle school doors will be specifically for the middle school teachers. And then the back of the lot, towards the High Point area, will be for the high school students and the upper school staff and faculty. There will be stairs going straight down to a path, straight down into the entrance of the upper school. So it's actually laid out perfectly. Our lot is laid out perfectly, so everybody, as it's divided up, will get a spot closest to the entrance they need to go into. So there won't be any issues. Even now, when we do have a big program, there are occasions where we use High Point Elementary or Beth Tefila, sometimes the Church of Atonement. We've remained in contact with them. We've talked to them several times through the year, and we will be able to continue that. We will use our shuttle bus if needed to take people to and from the parking lot. So they're really will be well set for next year. We'll move on to carpool and busing plan.
So just one more piece.
Yes.
That's what I do. So also our spots are going to be designated. So every faculty and student, we know what spots they're going to need. So in case of, if there's a, God forbid, a fire or some other emergency, we know whose car, who's on campus, who's taking a break, who hasn't. So it's assigned spots, and their spots are put basically by the doors that they're closest to. So here again, why is it assigned? And a lot of it, there are reasons. Because it's safer, we know who's in the building, when and how. I just want to make sure that people here, I don't want to park there, there's a reason. So we're going to, I think what we're going to do is we're going to move all the way through, and then we'll probably take a few questions. I'll give you some parameters on the question, then all different people will be here to answer questions about the particular area.
Carpool and busing plan. So carpool, there's going to be a separate entrance and a separate turnaround for the upper school where students will be dropped off and picked up. If the upper school students are in a carpool with someone from the middle school or the lower school, the upper school student will have to go to the younger student's designated area. We're going to try to keep the younger students.
I don't feel comfortable. So we're going to write all this up in an email with bullets. This is just to give you an overview. They go, don't feel like you have to get every piece that, we're saying now. It's just, we got it covered, relax, and we'll send you a nice detailed email. And you can email Jocelyn with all the questions. I just feel like as a teacher, I'm understanding it. So the overview, no one's seen this before. We'll do a proper email over the course of the week.
And with that said, we're actually going to send out, usually the carpool forms and the bus forms come out over the summer. We're going to be sending them out in the next 2 weeks or so. So we can get a head start on that and everybody's ready to move forward with that. As I was saying, we're going to ask the upper school students to go over to the lower school students areas. We're going to try to keep the lower school students out of the high school. That's the high school space. And there's a lot of questions regarding what happens when my child gets out at 3:35 and 4:07, because it's going to create a little bit of chaos for everybody. AJA's after-school program Club Cap is going to offer a homework club for students in the lower school. It's going to be $20 a week. We're going to have snacks, activities, homework time, so those students will be able to stay. And then everybody can be picked up after the 4:07 mark.
I babysat for $5 an hour like 20 years ago.
And as far as busing goes, this has been the biggest question. I've answered multiple emails about it in the last few weeks. We are getting a larger bus, and the price is going to go down dramatically. What we need from everybody, though, is participation. We can only offer this if people actually sign up for it. We really, really want to do this, but part of the reason we're going to be sending out the busing form is we're going to have a minimum sign-up for it. Because we are negotiating right now for a new 48-seat bus with air conditioning, as well as the current 14-seat minibus with AC that we have. One thing that I've heard from many parents is air conditioning is essential. So we are getting we're not going to get the typical yellow school bus, we are going to get the upgraded bus. But in order to confirm the large bus, we need the minimum amount of round-trip riders. As I said, the pricing is going to be drastically reduced from years past, but it will be first come, first serve. There were many people this year who ended up calling about the bus that were not able to get it because we did have a full bus this year. Again, this bus will be 3 times the size, but we do expect certain rides to be filled up, especially the 7:05 time that leaves Toco Hill.
So this bus is, initially, we're focusing on the Toco Hill community, and we are happy to add buses to other locales. We just need to see the demand justified to us. So if there are, folks who are not in the school, who want to be in the school, the dream would be to have buses going in many different locales and bringing students back. But we have to demand has to be there. So for starters, we're starting with Toco, and all of you who attend this brings, you can do it.
And so there will be 3 trips a day, 7:05, 3:40 after the lower school lets out, and 5 o'clock. After speaking to many people, we were notified that the high school students don't typically leave at 4:07. They want to stay longer. There's other activities going on at the school. It's going to be a 5 o'clock leave time, so we could also include lower school club activities and upper school club activities. And 5 o'clock leaving AJA will probably get them home to Rio Vista about But you won't have to be sitting in the traffic.
The 5 o'clock departure is, and we'll do some more data over time, but the number of high schoolers that typically leave at the dismissal is typically low because there's clubs, there's practices, there's what have you. So this gives us the benefit of the younger families who are in college cats because parents aren't home yet. Also gives upper school children, students, a opportunity if they want to do work, if they're in a club, if they're doing a practice. That felt like the right opportunity to catch as many students. But if it needs to be over time, we'll do it. Okay. So we're going to move into the questions piece, and here is how this is going to work. So we're going to do, I didn't forget you, don't worry. So we're going to do a few questions, and these should be questions that you believe are germane to all students, or points of clarification. If there are particular questions that you have that are pertinent to you, I'm going to ask you to hold them, and we'll do that outside with the person that is most apt to answer the question. I'm going to take 5 or 6 general questions, and then we're going to formally introduce Dr. Huben for his section of the evening, so we're still on time. So questions that are germane to the group, or points of clarification that are needed. So, sure.
It's a parking.
Okay. Parking.
Yeah, it's just when you're saying that everyone will have a designated space, does that include leaving spaces for distance that turn into drivers mid-year?
That is actually not going to be guaranteed right now. I have to assign all the spaces out first and see how many students are going to turn into drivers through the year.
Just say junior class.
Junior class.
Sophomores. Half the sophomores.
So we're going to have to collect that data, how many it is. It also may be such that to get a parking spot on this campus, we may have to carve a carpool and not just one-on-one, but we'll take that data as well. And we have to have some time to get all sites too, but I think it's pretty good in the last thing. Yeah.
I remember reading an email about Spanish.
Yes.
What is the status of that?
So here's where I am in Spanish. We have still looking, and there was a candidate who looked good, who was supposed to come in that was upcoming Tuesday, and I couldn't make it happen. So it's coming. I haven't closed the deal, but it's still the plan. Again, this is part of the deal. When you sync up the schedule, I can't have a Spanish teacher teach a class or 2 classes and find somebody good. If I can bring this through the middle school and high school, electives in the middle school, prep them, etc., it can work. It will likely be the vision at the moment, and not fully there, is it's a elective opportunity for 9th and 10th, and a legitimate course 11th and 12th, and it has a lot to do with, like everything else, colleges, because they want a certain number of years, so we're trying to navigate that piece. Working on it within a couple of weeks. Yes, quarter pockets.
How long is the short period, long period, and like a shorter period makes 45 minutes? How
I
long
think it's 45 and 72, is that right?
41 and 85.
I know the breaking.
Is the mascot, I'm assuming that the parents going to have a mascot outdoor place where they could lunch or something? I feel like they get sun the whole day and the way the
So in addition to a massive green soccer area, there is a outdoor space. The truth is actually, there's so focused on the inside, I can't remember what the outside looks like. But there was, I remember versions of a patio, and I remember, I can't remember the truth, but I will at this point. So, I'm focused on desks and furniture. Yeah.
In the video and a lot of discussions tonight, there's mention of high-tech Wi-Fi, high-tech Wi-Fi. Are there going to be any accommodations for students who actually cannot function with technology or should not function with technology to accommodate them?
So it's a good question. One thing I want to also note when Natasha said Maker's Lab, she said high tech and low tech. And remember that producing doesn't always have to be technology. In one of my old maker spaces, I had a sewing machine. And we have opportunities to actually build things with good old-fashioned, glue and bricks. So it's not only high tech. In terms of giving students what they need who are not wanting technology or too much, or most notably students who have a hard time multitasking with screens in front of us, absolutely. The specifics of what that learning plan looks like is very specific to the child, and I would send you, to John Naomi for specifics about what that looks like. Yes.
And I found a Google Classroom that nobody else can tell what assignments you did, what assignments were assigned, what they did. I can't believe it's not really.
I don't know. So I just sat with Scott last week for a few hours. So I have good news and bad. The bad news is Red Web, it's limited. So it's not going to be that great until we actually replace it in Red Web. The good news is we are looking at creating an expectation across the board to limit, particularly in the high school, where lots of teachers use the LMS that suits them, and that can make it very complicated for parents, like for someone like Naomi, to monitor kids because teachers are using what they need to. We come to an understanding, I and Scott have, and we'll roll that out soon, in terms of which one that's going to be, so that will minimize it. It's going to take me a whole other year to get a whole new platform that will be middle school through high school and have it seamless. There's just some limitations on Revit, but we're going to move in the right direction.
Going back to the children experience, you mentioned that you're trying to make them parallel with middle school as well. So I'm just curious if you're talking about 7th and 8th grade or 5th or 6th grade. Looking at areas of now finding that right shot.
41.
Seventh is very Jewish. It's still
Sorry.
it's still not allowed.
Are you talking about the 5th and 6th grade also having this program longer? And I'm curious.
Great question. So the way it's mostly synced up 7th and 8th, yeah. But the way we did it was 85. So in the middle school, we sliced them in half. So there's no 82-minute middle school class, but basically it's 2:40-something.
It's 41 with a 4-minute break switch over. We gave from a 3 to a 4 minutes.
So that allows us.
41 4.
Yes.
Who is Rabbi Cuban?
He's coming. All right, I have 2 more questions, and then we'll do Rabbi Cuban. Okay, 1, 2.
Mine's mostly for my daughter, who's a rising senior, who says she speaks with a heck of several. She wants to know if there's going to be a senior lounge, and if not, why not? And they've been looking forward to this since 9th grade.
Right. So this is what they call, here's the grenade, Rabbi, hold it. So we are in discussions on what a senior lounge looks like. And one of the pieces is because we're not having as many free periods next year, is taking space and designating it for a lounge, which gets used for 42 minutes for lunch, is not the best use of space. Secondly, we have built I don't know how many $100,000 and a huge learning commons for kids to hang out in different groups and pods, private spaces, so we have that as well. And I also want to build a maker's lab, a maker's lounge, which will allow students to come in and do all these things as well. And we're going to figure out what that looks like, maybe the times of day, etc. But the notion of a lounge for seniors is a discussion point. And I'll just speak candidly, and it'll be a discussion point, but I'm not super in favor of it. And I'll just tell you from where I come from, and I'm not going to take questions on it, and you can talk to me afterwards. I just have a very hard time understanding why I want to put students into a room with a little door that I can't supervise. I just don't like it. I'm old, I'm really old, I'm old school, And I it has a window, it's different. The space of it is right next to the classroom, so ping pong and this and that, I'm having a hard time. So I have not, for those students who are here, come to a complete decision, but I'm not in favor of this night transparent video. Last question goes to Julie, and then we'll introduce the only person in the room that has not been introduced. Yes.
So I have not had a child yet at the upper school, and I'm not really familiar with the term strategic learning. Is there an equivalent to lower school? Like, I'm hearing it sort of as Missilo, maybe? And is it just focused on kids who need extra help, or is it also focused on kids who need to be challenged more because they're not finding enough challenge like the ETGAR program had been in lower school?
I love how you know stuff. How can you quote Edgar? So, remember, this is, for all the talk of, merging, and what I tell the teachers is, we merged, I don't know, 1-2 years ago, whatever it was, but we didn't really merge, right? We got a board, and we got a building, and we consolidated finances. That's not merging. Merging, and I mean, merging happens in many respects next year. Bringing two different cultures into one space, looking at what was called, Missilo in the lower grades, in K through 4, and the middle school program. Those are all different. There was never streamlined learning support. So we're going to bring all it together, and with someone like Naomi also helping us bridge that gap. In the upper school, what is now known as strategic learning, focuses mostly on students who need something extra. The ETGAR enrichment is more of a focus of course selection. So to say it very simple and not so nuanced is, the more APs you're taking, the more honors you're taking, that's how you define rigor. All classes will be rigorous, and the question is how many you take and how long you take. Having said that, a normal child is going to need some level of help. Executive function, stress, etc. And some of the things that we will work on for all children, because John said good teaching is good teaching, helps everybody. So in that realm, it's going to help everybody, but you're not going to the SL lab for enrichment. That wouldn't be go. All right, enough for me, talking head. So I spent probably since, we're still recording it on pace, right? So I spent probably since, I don't know, September, October, I knew that we needed a next study principal in after school. And I searched. And I searched, and find, a placement firm, and they searched, and find. And the reason why I had such a hard time was I needed somebody who really, for starters, was in line with us from a mission and a hashkafic standpoint. And there are plenty of those. Then I found a lot of folks who, a few folks who understood education and understood what education should look like. But to find somebody who has the Torah knowledge, who is hashkafically and philosophically correct, and understands what education should look like, and is somebody who's willing to be innovative, was a very long and hard process. And we scoured this country and Israel. And I could not be more happy than to tell you, not a big surprise anymore, that I found such a person, and Rabbi Cuban, who have been working together, have really begun the work of visioning. A lot of what Hugh and I are going to do is go deep into the curriculum and make sure that it's right, properly sequenced, to have data. For example, my dream would be, just like in general studies, I can tell you, here's where your child is in math and science and whatever it is, and here are the standards. And I can tell you, thank you for coming. And, and I can tell you exactly where they are and benchmark it. Judaic studies doesn't really have that. It's not this school. It's not really around in the country. And one of the processes that we're going to work on is to really be able to give data-driven information to all of you about Judaic studies, about reading. Debbie and I are working on that also in the lower and middle school. But you need someone to do that work, someone who gets it. So I couldn't be more excited than to begin this journey with Rebecca Lynn. And with that very long introduction, I would love for you to meet her.
Thank you so much for that very unnecessary introduction. Just hit this thing we go. I wanted to first of all just say how excited I am to be here and to be joining the team. It's a really great opportunity as this merger comes to a fruition. Moving to the campus, I had a really enjoyable time when I visited earlier this year, twice. And I think that the best part of my visit, I think I told this to a number of people, was when I had a chance to actually sit with students for a while. I think I was actually late to my next meeting because the meeting went over. And so that really gives me a real sense of excitement to come and join the faculty and the administration and to work with these students. And I wanted to start, as I would say, with just a total thought, which I think will kind of set the stage for what I want to talk about this evening. It's already night. I don't know what time it is. We're supposed to be done already. So I know that I'm the person standing in between you and the end of the program. At the same time, I want to fully introduce you to what I want to say. So just this past week, just yesterday, we read in the Torah about a mitzvah called Kedoshim Tihiyu, and you shall be holy. It's a really eloquent description. And this week, we're going to read about a very similar commandment to the priests, the Kohanim, where it says, Kedoshim Tihiyu, you shall be holy. These sound really similar. And so my question that I always pondered is, what exactly that means? Because the concept of Kiddusha, what it means to be Kadosh, the word holy always seemed me wanting more. I like pictures. When I think of holy, I think of Swiss cheese, bagels. I don't really think of any concept that I can kind of sink my teeth into when it comes to a command. What does it mean to be holy? And so the way I've gone about exploring this, and I've done this with my students, I find a way to sneak it in every year, is to think about how we use that term in practice. So there are two examples I think are the best examples. One is, every week on Friday night, we make Kiddush, right? That's the same word, Kiddusha, Kiddush. We make Kiddush on Friday night. And what is it that we're doing? And there's another thing that happens in the life cycle of a Jew, and that is the chuppah, which we call that ceremony Kiddushin. Again, the same word, Kadosh, Kiddush, Kiddushin. What is it that these ceremonies, that these ritualistic things that we do, what are they, and how can they kind of inform us as to what this concept of Kadosh or Kiddusha is? So if you think about what we're really doing on Friday night, and what are we doing when a couple gets married, I think that the best description, the best word, I'm going to throw it to you. Can someone come with a definition? How would you define the word Kadosh or Kiddusha? We'll take one or two responses for none of them. Elevation. Okay. Anyone else? Separate. That's my plan for the audience. Okay. Elevation is certainly true. That when you talk about Kadosh, you make something, elevate something, you make something more special. The word that I like to use the most is the word separate or the word distinct. And when you think about it, on Friday night what we're doing is we're saying that this day is separate from the rest of the week. In fact, the way the Rambam thinks about it, you actually do it twice. Once at the beginning of Shabbat and once at the end of Shabbat. And there we actually use the term Havdalah, which means to separate. Right? That's what we're doing. We're saying that this day is different from every other day during the week. And when you get married, you're doing the same thing. You're saying that this relationship, right, this couple is kind of designating this relationship is different from the relationship I have with everyone else. And to me, being smack in the middle of these two parshiot, of reading about these two mitzvot, to me is the perfect opportunity for me to talk to you for the first time, being installed as the steward of Limudei Kodesh, of that learning which is kadosh, that learning which makes us separate or distinct. Okay? For Judaic studies. Before I do that though, let's go. Right? Okay? Something that I think should affect the subject of our courses, the experiences we have. It's something to define the experience both in and outside of the classroom. It's something that should not just be something we learn, but our worldview, the glasses we wear, Kiddusha, and that entire enterprise that we're entering is something that should be defined by Kadosh, by Kiddusha, by being separate and distinct. And so therefore I think this is the perfect time to talk about what kind of the vision for the Judaic studies in AJA is. But I want to take a step back before I do that and kind of frame it actually with my own story. To do a Mark Bakerism, if you will. If you know who Mark Baker is, Mark Baker is the head of school in Gann Academy. And he's someone who had the opportunity to learn with on a number of occasions. So this is kind of something that comes from his book. But I wanted to start actually talk about myself and then come back to Judaic studies. So here we go. When I was younger, in elementary school, I got by on being smart. I didn't know how to be a student. I was bright, and that was all wonderful until I got to what I call the transitional years of 7th and 8th grade, where I looked something more like that. And I had to kind of figure out how to do school, right? Because until that point, I wasn't really a student. I was just smart. And then I had to figure out how to actually be a student because I wasn't doing so well. My parents weren't so happy, I wasn't so happy, and they weren't letting me do the things that I wanted to do, so that wasn't really working out. And so this is kind of the jumping off point for where I am today. And as I entered high school, I found that my teachers really inspired me and changed my focus on myself and helped me kind of want to be a better student, want to figure out how to do school, and really set in motion a process that brought me to standing before you on a Sunday evening in Atlanta. First, really with my English teachers, and then some of my Rebbeim and teachers. And already in high school, I knew that I wanted to enter the field of education, which is a strange thing. I think it's a strange thing. But I've come a long way from that kid to the kid who decided he wanted to be an educator to really where I am today. And I'd say from the teacher who was fresh out of graduate school to someone who had a little bit more experience under his belt, over the last 5-6 years, so just the last swath of time, I've kind of been on a mission to reinvent myself and to affect the schools that I worked in to kind of change the way that we think about education, change the way we think about servicing our students. And through opportunities, I mentioned Mark Baker, through professional development opportunities that I've had, through some tinkering and experimenting in the classroom, which is a big thing that I will always talk about how my classroom continues to be kind of my laboratory for educational methods and models, because I think that we're always continuing to try new things and improve. And if we're not, then we're on an escalator going down. If we're not moving up, then we're moving down, right? Sorry for that analogy. And so this is kind of like my mission, and this is kind of where I'm at in terms of my educational philosophy. Which brings me now back full circle to talking about Judaic studies in AJA. Let's see if we're in the right place. So here we go. I can't speak with full authority about everything about the curriculum as it exists right now, although I've been doing a lot of learning and talking and discussing and planning with all of the important people in the school already. And I want to talk to you about kind of my vision for what I'd like to see us build. It's an aspirational vision. It's not where we are. But in partnership with the teachers, the administration, and with the parents and students, this is something I think that we can achieve together. And the first thing is that I think together we can form this picture, which is a community of learners. A community where both teachers and students are committed to learning. Teachers are also learning. If we ever stop learning, then we kind of stop being effective teachers. It's something that we have to partner with together to do, and something that hopefully will inspire us to continue to use reflection as a springboard to pushing ourselves forward in education, in our own growth, wherever we are, as a student, as a teacher. I love this painting. So. I can envision a place where students have the opportunity to direct their own learning, and a place where they can explore their own interests, their passions, and at the same time, teachers are encouraged to embrace new forms of learning, new ways of teaching and assessing. Right? That's the old study, have tests, pass, and what you learn the next day. So you think about a little bit outside the box about how we teach and how we assess, and how we can kind of embrace the new data that Rabbi Lubin spoke about how teaching is effective, whether it's a makerspace for making space, for students to learn in a way that is engaging and is really going to speak to the heart of what education is all about, which we're going to come back to in a moment. I can envision a place where we can both strive for familiarity with our traditional texts, something that's really important as we prepare them for yeshivot and seminary and further learning in the future, as well as gaining important analytical skills which are true across the spectrum, across curriculum, and nurturing the innate curiosity and creativity that every student has, and we haven't beaten out of them yet. I can envision a place where there is a joint partnership between Judaic studies and general studies to think broadly about both the concepts and skills that we're teaching, and creating opportunities to not just teach across the curriculum, but to be in sync as one school and to work together to foster the same ideals, the same values, and surely in what we're teaching, but even more than that. And that's, which brings us to the next slide, where midot and really is the backbone of a respectful community, which is an honest community and one that encourages students not just to stay within their comfort zone, but to take risks and become vulnerable to allow them to enhance and reach higher. If we always allow students to be in their comfort zone, so it's very hard for them to continue to grow unless we push them a little bit. And so risk-taking, and I mean in the good way, in the classroom sense and in the broadening our horizons and reaching a little bit further than what we think we can do is really important in part of that culture that we're going to build. And at the same time, I think that we are not just about kind of the backbone of the community, but it's a way of thinking. And I think that when we talk about Judaic studies, when we think about Jewish law, it's not just something that is something we learn, it's something we study, it's kind of a global philosophy. If you think about Torah U'Madam, which is a term that's out there in the world, I think it really goes beyond that. Where I am now in SAR, they talk about the grand conversation between Torah and the world. It's really about a worldview, a hashkafa, that is, we look at the world through the lens of Torah, with Torah values, and that is something that impacts every aspect of our lives, not just in the classroom, but really much more broadly than that. It's a place where, on that note, chesed is something that is incorporated into the curriculum, and hopefully will be something that will find its application not only in student behavior, but hopefully in student project and in service learning, and a place where ultimately we are preparing students for what their life will be like when they leave the halls of this hallowed institution and move on into what we call, quote unquote, the real world. Having that 21st century philosophy, using the lens of Torah to look at the world will hopefully be something that will benefit our students, not just in them wanting to continue to learn and grow, but something in how they kind of attunes the mind to look at the world for now and for their entire lives. If I'm allowed, I'll take a few questions. Otherwise, I know the hour is late, as the old Roman actually used to say.
We'll take a few questions, and just a reminder that the human has not worked a day yet, and is on our campus for about 22 total hours. So with that context, questions?
Yes.
Are you familiar with seminaries and yeshivot?
So the answer is yes. The proliferation of seminaries and yeshivot has made it difficult to know all the ins and outs of every place as things continue to crop up on a yearly basis. But I have already been talking to people in multiple schools who work in and have relationships with the yeshivot and seminaries, and they have a lot of systems that they put in place and people in contact. I know many of the people who run yeshivot and seminaries because many of them are my contemporaries or people that I was with at some point in school. So I have a good foothold, and there's a lot that I have to learn, but a lot of people that I have to learn from. Oh,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if this is a religious question or a Tuesday question,
Good.
or neither.
Let's
It's
start.
not right now. I'm just curious, maybe too long. I saw an email that Early was sent out recently that next year we're going to have one Judaic track instead of the two. And I just am curious if you have any thought about if a kid was in the Moreshet Israel track, how we're going to, let's say they've had a few years without a lot of skills building, how we're going to effectively integrate them into Moreshet.
So there's a short answer and a long answer. I'll give you the short answer. The short answer is that no matter where you are in the spectrum of learning within the school, there's a certain amount of differentiation that by nature has to happen in the classroom. And it's something that we need to continue to support our teachers with. It's what Mr. Wilson was talking about in terms of strategic learning, that good teaching, because good teaching for everybody will benefit everybody. That's something that we need to continue to support our teachers, differentiate in the classroom, because no matter how much background you have, there's going to be a range of kids sitting in front of the teacher. And so whether you're coming from the Morash Israel track, or you're coming from middle school, or you're coming from another school, there's going to be a range of students. So the short answer is yes. We need to integrate them, and the short answer is we have to do our best to differentiate to meet the needs of those students.
I just also want to add, for clarity, the one track has different levels inside of it, so there are different opportunities, as well as the schedule is built so it's cross grade. So 9th and 10th grader will have the ability to learn with each other, as well as 11th as well. So it gives us a larger pool to be able to differentiate within. So your child will probably likely not only be learning with children of his or her grade.
I don't know this yet, but are you actually going to be in the classroom instead of do it?
100%.
Do you know yet what you're actually
I don't know the answer to the second question. I know the answer. The first question is I'm definitely going to be teaching. I do not know the answer to the second question, although I might have more insight come tomorrow. But right now I don't know the answer to that question, the second question.
Virtually all administrators next year will be teaching in the classroom.
And I'll tell you, I think that in order to, just as someone who, both in terms of philosophically, but also just in terms of practice looking at it, you can't be an administrator in a school without having a foothold in the classroom. You need to be connected to students in order to understand what the student experience is like and to understand what the teacher experience is like. It's very hard to lead faculty and lead students without knowing what that experience is like for them in the trenches. So I think it's a really important thing for any administrator to be in the classroom. Did you just have a question before? Okay.
Amongst our kids, we have a 7th grader, so we're not looking right now at 9th grade. But I wanted to know, from a philosophical perspective, in teaching Judaic studies, how much are you going to be focused on text-based learning and teaching the fundamental questions that teenagers as Jews face in answering basic questions about their Judaism from a more mature perspective than from a middle school perspective? How are you going to enable both those aspects and not just focus on text-based learning?
For sure. So I skipped over some of my bullet points to try to save some time. There's two pieces to that question. One piece is that my educational philosophy is such that I think that skills are the focus. Skills and opportunities to learn hands-on is much more important than, for example, just simply gathering information. Right? If I teach you to fish, right, it's more valuable than handing you a fish. So skills is a really important piece of it. At the same time, within the classes, one of the things that we're doing by merging the curriculum into one unified curriculum is that built in both to the plan in each class as well as opportunities that come up, we're going to be addressing real life questions that are going to be coming up through the text as well as from students. As a teacher, I've only ever taught in school with one track, and it's never been an issue that, on Fridays a lot of times, depending on where we are, I'll allow my Gemara students, my Torah Pes students we have a slot where we allow them to ask questions. I think it's really important and healthy for students to have that outlet to be able to ask questions, and that's part of, first of all, getting to know your teacher and forging that relationship, which is super important. It has to happen both organically from the text, which I think is important, and the text often raises many of those issues that we face today, and if we deal with the text as a perspective and a lens to look at those real-world issues, it actually makes the text come much more alive. But having an opportunity to deal with the questions as they come up also, again, each teacher has to be able to manage that and to balance that properly. There is a balance, and there will be a curriculum there's what to do in terms of the specific skills that we want to build, but there will certainly be time to deal with real-world issues and questions that will come up.
Maybe as a slightly indirect follow-up, what is your perspective on the role that schools should have in formal education versus external organizations?
Yeah. So I think that what's happened over the years is if I look back to when I was in high school, versus now what it looks like in high school today. A lot of what used to happen outside of school has kind of found its way through the doors, under the windows, into the school. And a lot of informal educational opportunities, we have those opportunities actually in school. And I think that capitalizing on those opportunities within school is important. Now, there's a balance. There are things that we do, that the school does and the school runs, that are informal programs that are run, but they're not really informal because they're planned and they're strategic, and there's almost like a curriculum of what those informal educational opportunities are within the school. And I think it is important that we incorporate those aspects, which are very successful, whether it's in camp or the NCSY when I was growing up, that those were the opportunities we had. Having some of those opportunities in school is actually really vital and important. Again, it's like everything else, there's a balance. We want to embrace some of that informal education because it's really important to offer those experiences in addition to the classroom learning. But again, there's always going to be a give and a take and a balance that we have to strike. And it's something that's an ongoing process, having not been here for a day. I can tell you no matter what school you step into, it's an ongoing give and take as to what space that lives in and when exactly it happens and what the balance is. But it's certainly something that we have to take advantage of.
So I just want to note and thank, I see the star or E has joined us, so thank you both for coming. What we're going to do now is we're going to move to the cafeteria area, and if you have any questions about any particular topic, you should be able to know who to talk to. And if we have enough people who have not gotten Mara, we'll come back here at 9 o'clock to do so. Thank you for coming.